Mini Shajil, Shajil Andhru, KM Santosh Kumar, Mehreen Ahmed, Margozada, fellow members of Litterature RW, other literateurs and artists present here. A warm welcome from me and Study World Education Holding. I'm extremely happy and honored to become the part of the Global Literature Conclave, an initiative of Literature Redefining World, a transnational magazine from Kerala, India. Also, I'm happy to become the first jury person for the KM Anthru Prize for Literature. KM Anthru, renowned writer from Kerala, who wrote in mother tongue, led a very simple life and showed his literacy skills throughout his career in diverse ways. The response to the nomination call for KM Anthru Prize was exciting, and we got ample number of nominations which made jury tough. The key factors which we considered during the evaluation were the years of literary activities, presence in both print and online media, number of literary genres, other artistic activities and their contribution to literature with studies in novel ideas or experiments. All the jury members unanimously selected Mr. Jack Foley from California as the topper in the evaluation, and I heartily announce the first in 2021 KM Anthru Prize for Literature goes to Jack Foley from California. I would like to add why we consider Jack Foley as a winner. Jack Foley was born in August 1940 in Neptune, New Jersey. As an excellent student and with the aid of his local library, Foley read widely and soon exploring the works of various poets. At 15, he realized that whatever else he was now and forever a poet. Foley's parents could not afford him to send him to college, but he surprised them by winning scholarship money that enabled him to attend first Cornell University in Ithaca, New York, and then University of California at Berkeley. Foley worked hard as graduate student at Berkeley and tried to keep his poetry going amid all the furor of the 60s. Eventually, Foley dropped out of school. He wanted to become a poet. Foley also developed various techniques of writing and presenting poetry. He persuaded his wife Adele to help him perform what he called choruses, a word that conjured up both the ancient Greeks and world of musical comedy. In 1988, Berkeley radical station KPFM offered Jack a radio show. That show continues to this day. Foley created a tap dance poem which featured not only his words but a bit of an art his father taught him. Over the years, Foley published a multitude of books with various publishers, books of poetry, but books of essays as well. Foley continues to write, perform and think about poetry. In 1955 to 2021 is a long journey in which Jack Foley had chosen poetry and writing for his breathing. His presence in print and online media is really commendable. He writes poetry, prose, essays, stories, dramas and has his signature in all genres of literature. Performance of courses and tap dance poems are innovative in the literature world. We thankfully acknowledge the nomination of Jack Foley and heartily congratulate him for his achievement and wish him all healthy and energy to contribute more to literature. The organizers had chosen anniversary function of Literature Redefining World to hold the Global Literature Conclave as well. In coming days, there will be more poetry, fiction, paintings and literary discussions and speeches which will enrich the celebration. I consider this as good, innovative initiative and wish all success for this team and magazine in the future. I am glad to declare this Global Literature Conclave 2021 conducted by Litterature Redefining World as inaugurated. Thank you.
Hello, Shauchil, Minnie, and Roshni. Thanks again for coming, and thanks to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Berkeley, hidden though it may be, for allowing us to have this event in this lovely room. Deborah Backel-Schmidt was the facilitator. For those of you who don't know, I'm Jack Foley. As you do know, I'll be receiving the KM Anthru Literature Prize, which is administered by Litterateur RW, Redefining World. To say that I'm grateful is inadequate. An award like this is breathtaking and sweet and tells me that someone was there, that the effort was worth it, that I was right when I decided to become a poet. Deep thanks to my brother in the arts, Shauchil Anthru, and to his late father, KM Anthru, for whom the award is named. I want to tell you a little about KM Anthru, and we'll hear more about him a little bit later as well from Anthony Theckick. He was born on April 2nd, 1937. He began his literary career at the age of 17. During his long career, he published numerous books and articles. From all accounts, he was a wonderful man and a wonderful writer. It was his desire to become an editor that led to the launching of Litterature RW. He passed away on December 19th, 2020, but since it is currently April 2nd in India, today is his birthday. The jury awarding me the prize was chaired by Dr. Vidya Vinod. It consisted of Polish author Malgorzata Borzykowska, Australian author Moideen Ahmed, and Shauchil Anthru. My deep thanks to all of them. April 1st is, of course, a number of things. Incidentally, April Fool's Day is a civic holiday in one place in the world, Odessa, Ukraine. I don't know if they're celebrating it today. I don't know. Anyway, not for nothing does Poetry Month begin with April Fool's Day, and tonight is the beginning of Ramadan. Today is also the birthday of the late artist Leonard Breger, who in 1995 made the image of me that you see on the program. We'll have a number of speakers today, and you can find information about them in the insert we placed in the program. Your host will be Paul Veres, a dear friend and a wonderful artist. He designed the program and also added the medallion and the cloud, surely Cloud 9, to Leonard Breger's image. Please welcome Paul Veres, wonderful artist. Paolo, grazie. Let me get out of your way.
Well, I don't have to say anything much about Jack because everybody knows he's a poet. And I'm supposed to say something about you, right? So I can say that...
You're not a process server.
No, I'm not a process server. But I was, lucky enough to meet Jack a number of years ago through a project that was started by the wife, the former wife of Mr. Berger here. Breger, sorry. And it was a fabulous thing. She was an artist, and she had done her autobiography in the form of written words, and she made etchings to illustrate the book. And that's how I first met her. Then she at one point wanted to do a book of the little illustrations she did, that when she was working for the Chronicle Examiner would go to poetry readings as an assignment, make sketches of the people who were speaking. And Jack was hoodwinked into write something about each of those people that became part of that book. And Jack wrote things in the style of T.S. Eliot or Ferlinghetti or whatever. Am I correct? He did. So it was pretty wonderful, and I've known Jack ever since. So,
I think you need to raise the microphone.
can you hear me? Yeah, raise it. sort of pointing at my... How's that? In the back, can you hear me? If you can't hear me, raise your hand. Aha. Anyway, so I don't want to say more about Jack really because you're going to do that, you folks who are going to be stepping up here. But I'm here to read something by Ivan Arguelles. Did I say it right? Arguelles. Because he couldn't be here, so I'm going to read his statement about Jack. So, quotes. It is my pleasure to introduce today Jack Foley, recipient of the first, pardon my pronunciation, KM Anthru Litterateur Prize, which is administered by Litterateur RW, Redefining World, a transnational online print magazine based in Kerala, India, and edited by poet, I hope I do this right, Shajil Anthru. Is that correct? Yeah. Thank you. Jack Foley writes, quote, "An award like this is breathtaking and sweet and tells me that someone was there, that the effort was worth it, that I was right when I chose to become a poet." That's what you just said. That's what I said. Okay, so he's repeating you. Unquote. Indeed, I can think of no one more deserving of this award than Jack Foley, who is a member of an increasingly rare literary species, a poet through and through. He has devoted a lifetime exploring, inventing, and literally breathing poetry. In a word, a poet dedicated to all avenues of poetry, especially the inexplicable ones, the mysterious, the mystical paths that leave no evidence. Despite his years, we won't mention how many, despite his years, Foley continues to be surprised by what poetry can do, what new directions it can take. Foley is not only an inventive, creative artist, a spinner of word myths and experiences, but he's also an intellectual giant, a formulator of the histories and traditions of poetry, a first-hand witness to much of the poetry of the last century and this new one. He has authored one of the most important works chronicling the poetry and culture of his now native state of California, home of some of the most striking poetic movements and poets, not only in America, but in the English language as a whole, namely his unique 2-volume masterpiece, Visions and Affiliations, a California literary timeline, Poets and Poetry, 1940 to 2005, correct? Yes. A work whose significance is now being brought to light by a broader critical audience. I'm speaking for Ivan, it's not me. I first heard Jack read one of the choruses, the Hummingbird Chorus, as I recall. He performed this piece with his wife Adele who sadly died a few years back. Sorry. Suffice it to say, it was one of the most electrifying performances I had ever witnessed. Until then, Jack was a virtual unknown on the scene. I had some little currency, enough to lift him up and present him at the mic with me in the reading we did together. After that, Jack took off at his own meteorological pace, full of his own seasons and weathers, radio shows, awards and honors, multiple readings, and many, many poetry publications, some in collaboration with me, among others. Jack has not ceased accumulating critical acclaim, and yet, oddly, he still persists more on the margins rather than the central pivoting point of the poetic world which he inhabits, with due diligence, talent, and love. Now, 81, and with his new partner, Sangi Land, Jack's energies and creative focus remain undiminished. May this award be regarded, May this award be regarded not as a culmination, but as a new beginning of Jack's stellar career as a poet par excellence. So now I'm supposed to introduce the other people. Is that correct? Correct. who will read. So the first is Christopher Bernard. Would you please come up and sign in, please?
Thank you. Thank you, Paul.
Yes.
And thank you, Jack, for kindly asking me to help introduce you to this very extraordinary and very happy day for you and for us, for everyone in the poetry community in Bay Area, California, and I think the country and the world at large. I'm going to begin with a very short quotation from Gertrude Stein, a lecture that she gave in the 1920s called Composition as Explanation. Quote, "The creator of the new composition in the arts is an outlaw until he is a classic." Unquote. When I've heard that Jack Foley, poet, performer, critic, essayist, writer of fiction, playwright, radio personality, and a seminal historian of modern California poetry whose mammoth visions and affiliations just mentioned, should have been enough, even without his decades of brilliantly innovative literary work, to put Jack's name permanently on the literary map. When I heard that Jack had won an international literary award in a country on the other side of the globe, my first thought was, well, it's about time. And my second thought was the biblical reminder: a prophet is not without honor except in his own country. Over the last several decades, there has been an increasing consolidation of American language publishers into an ever-shrinking number of conglomerates. As a result, many of what I believe to be the most vital currents in modern Anglophone literature, and especially poetry, are being pursued by independent publications such as Litterateur RW in India, and independent publishers like our own Regent Press in Berkeley. It's often said that a mainstream publisher's idea of originality is anything like last year's bestsellers. Even literary editors are prone to tremble before the dictatorship of the marketplace, and whatever political or cultural prejudices command the headlines this week. Our piety for innovators is strong, as long as they lived at least 3 generations ago and are no longer in danger of rocking the boat today, even when the boat is in danger of sinking and rocking it may be the only sure way of saving it. And so, I think it is safe to say that when, 50 or 100 years from now, assuming we're still around, when they look back at the turn of the millennium and the poetry of the Bay Area, of California, of this paradoxical country called America, land where hope and despair are forever in mortal conflict, the literary establishment will be strongly tempted to call this an age not of the folly in which we are clearly even tragically immersed, but of Foley, and above all, of Jack Foley. During a time when far too many writers have become risk-averse, followers of trends, half afraid of their own shadows, the morals clause in their book contracts, and the trolls of social media, and willing to do just about anything to get a review in the New York Times or a post in Goodreads, and usually failing in the attempt, Jack has followed the only rule that, in my own dubiously humble opinion, matters to a poet worth his, her, or their salt: the rule of intelligence, integrity, fearlessness, and imagination. Jack seems to have taken to heart Ezra Pound's command, "Make it new," adding to it that other demand from Sergei Diaghilev, "Étonnez-moi," astonish me. Because Jack continues to make it new and to astonish us with every work he gives us. Jack's writing has always been that of a strenuously active intellectual, which puts him immediately at a disadvantage in this country. America must be the only country where the prejudice against intellectuality is so great that even many of its writers run from the aspersion as from a pulper of remaindered books. But Jack's is a passionate intellectuality, and his work is the expression of a person as deeply humane as he is deeply aware. He is a poet in the ecstatic tradition of Whitman, as refracted through the lenses of Pound and Charles Olson, and varieties of literary post-structuralism, with bits of vaudeville, Cole Porter, George Gershwin, and tap dancing thrown in. All of this mixed and blended in a mind unique but all-inviting. individual, yet multitudinous. Yes, a spirit as deep as the day and as broad as history. Jack's poetic explorations come out of the generativity of language, which is, to all practical purposes, and conceivably even to theoretical ones, infinite. He has taken many of the prejudices and rules of writing, the sorts of thing that make writing classes and writers' groups a torment to the spirit. Write what you know, show don't tell, find your personal voice, and the like, and turn them on their heads. As Jack has often explained, he writes not from the center of personality in its more limited manifestations, but from the center of language, which is the archetype of the open system, a generator of meanings that, within all the possible frameworks of grammatical rules and systems of phoneme, morpheme, orthography, and the like, is essentially without limits. Infinity is thus immediately available to us, as available as it can be to an ultimately finite creature, through language, as it is through mathematics, music, and the other arts, and the night sky above us. Language is one of the entrances available to all of us to the infinity at the heart of being, an infinity that is either terrifying or ecstatic, depending on how well you slept the night before. At the center of language, we also find the great ostensible value of American culture, though it is a value often paid more lip service than real service to. And that value is freedom, in its spiritual sense above all. The absolute freedom of the mind to fashion its own meaning and meanings out of itself, to fashion its world, to crumble the given like a dandelion head into seeds, into fertile and life-giving fragments, annealing and re-annealing them over and over, ever and again, into the shapes of the spirits, my, your, our, ever-changing hopes and desires and dreams. Jack's work takes place in the great theater of meaning that is language, an open-ended circus, an epic that has no conclusion, an endless conversation between an infinite number of speakers. In Jack's work, there are only pauses. There's no closure. There are few ideas headier than these, at least for myself. Indeed, this may be why I believe Jack makes the literary and academic establishment uneasy. They laugh at him nervously. His few supporters in the literary establishment are sometimes ridiculed for taking him seriously. He's avant-garde, experimental, modernist, postmodernist, an extremist, an outlier, not mainstream, an eccentric, a terrorist. All that crazy modern, postmodern stuff was supposed to have died with Derrida after September 11, Afghanistan, Iraq, ISIS after Trump, COVID, January 6, wildfires, Omicron, Ukraine. We have gone back, perhaps understandably, to comfort food. We have wanted fairy tales, modest, entertaining little poems, unpretentious, to keep us bottle-fed and asleep. We haven't wanted our writers to wake us too suddenly as we walk toward the nightmarish future of the 21st century. We might have to change something. We might have to change everything. We haven't wanted to hear in German or English, Du musst dein Leben ändern. You must change your life. One had thought such feeble spirits had gone into hiding long ago. We were beyond such schoolmasters types of a past century, but apparently not. The follies of that time are enjoying a comeback. The 20th century may have to be fought all over again, from socialism to modernism, from labor unions to the freedom of the heart, soul, spirit, mind, from revolt to rebellion, pandemic to world war, from revolution to liberation. For those of us who believe that poetry is one of the royal roads to the only reality humankind can bear, like a weary atlas of the infinite, and that, to quote from my own poem, Senor Despair and the Angel, the ultimately beautiful is the ultimately real, an idea Jack himself disagrees with, though, given that André Breton said that beauty will be convulsive or not be at all, I would submit Jack's own work contradicts him. Indeed, Jack's work is a reminder of all that is at stake. Thank you. And thank you, Jack.
Ooh, that's fine. Very nice. Next will be Deborah Buckles-Schmidt.
Thank you, everyone. It's so fantastic to be a part of celebrating Jack Foley, such an extraordinary poet and human being. And I would like to begin by reading a poem I wrote for him for his 81st birthday last August, for Jack at 81. 81 is a magical number, the sixth perfect totient heptagonal, 9 times 9, the fourth power of 3, the roundness of the triple trinity squared. It is the atomic number of thallium, the number of squares on a shoji board, divinations in the Tai Chuan Jing, stanzas in the Tao Te Ching, or repetitions of the rosary. 81 is a southern interstate, a bakery in Sonoma, now defunct, the chosen number of the Hells Angels, H and A being the 8th and first letters, the international phone code for Japan, a Miles Davis track, a Mendelssohn Capriccio, a Dvorak quintet, and 2 spiral galaxies. The 81st meridian springs from the pole and passes through North America, the Atlantic, the Caribbean, the Pacific, and the Southern Ocean. Crossing the heart of Antarctica, it traverses the other side of the globe through Sri Lanka, the Indian Ocean, Nepal, India, Tibet, China, Kazakhstan, Russia, and the Kara Sea. In the beginning of our lives, a year can be half a lifetime. The years accelerate as they become smaller and smaller divisions of our span. Yet, thanks to time's elasticity, we are still given these infinite moments, sun igniting the rim of your glass as you sit in the garden speaking of Mallarmé. 81 is 180 reversed, the opposite of an about face, a symbol for facing forward, which you model with such grace. You are living the 81st Psalm, proven at the waters, answered in the secret place of thunder. You make a joyful noise and sing aloud unto God your strength. Amazing. I have to think about that number. And we would like to read together a dual translation of Baudelaire's poem Recueillement, which we discovered we had both translated. So Jack created one of his wonderful dual poems out of this. Take your time.
Everybody says that to me these days. I usually answer, I'll take my time till time takes me. Thank you, Deborah.
Absolutely.
All right.
All right.
Yes, it's show them the magazine.
Oh, it just came out in the Exacting Clam.
And it's called Baudelaire's Recueillement ×2. Be good, O my sorrow, calm down.
Be wise, O my sorrow, and keep yourself more calm.
You wanted evening, here it comes, it's here.
You clamored for evening. See, it's falling. Here it is.
A dark atmosphere enfolds the town.
A gloomy atmosphere envelops the entire town.
Brings peace to some, to others care.
To some it carries peace, to others care and worry.
While the vile multitude of mortals,
While among the mortals, the vile multitude,
under the whip of pleasure, that merciless butcher,
under the lash of pleasure, hangman without mercy,
sets out to gather remorse in slavish revels.
goes to reap remorse in the servile feast.
My sorrow, give me your hand. Let's go over here.
Oh, my sorrow, give to me your hand. Come here.
Away from them. See where the defunct years lean
Far from them, see the late years leaning down.
on the balconies of the sky in superannuated gowns,
From balconies of sky, dressed in antique robes.
where regret leaps up from the depths of the waters, smiling,
See smiling regret rising from the depths.
where under an arch the moribund sun sleeps sound,
The dying sun falling asleep beneath an arch.
and like dragging from the east a long shroud.
And like a long shroud trailing to the east.
Listen, darling, listen to the sweet night coming.
Hear, my dear one, hear the footfalls of sweet night.
Thank you for the hexameters.
He got the rhyme.
She got the hexameters.
Now, Nina Serrano.
Thank you. To Jack Foley's honor, April Fool's Day, 2022. Thanks to Litterateur RW for this glorious event on April Fool's Day, a day for thanks, pranks, and breaking with traditions, a perfect day for honoring Jack Foley. After listening to him on the radio for years, he would greet me in the station hallway as we passed, a little tap dance routine and a big smile. I invented a little fake answering tape dance routine in return. Today, as octogenarians, neither of us can tap dance, real or imitation. But Jack still shakes me up with challenges. The first time I encountered was posed in his exciting book on California poetry, Visions and Affiliations, where he posed that there are two kinds of poetry, page poetry and performance poetry. I immediately responded to the idea, recognizing myself as a performance poet. That was why I first wrote poetry, to read it aloud to people. I considered it an organizing tool. I don't think something so utilitarian was what Jack meant by performance poetry as opposed to the page poets, whose poems were meant to be read, not heard. But for me, recognizing myself as a performance poet felt like liberation. Jack would often ask, poem after poem, where was the mind located? I answered with ease. My mind is in my brain, from where the voice within my head constantly speaks to me and where language is located. I explained this idea to a doctor sitting next to me at a dinner table. I don't remember if I ever told Jack. Another intellectual challenge came with Jack's concept that all people and poets consist of multiple voices. He even dared to insert his own lines into other people's poems and broadcast them, and even write poems in two voices and record them. I didn't get it, though Jack asserted this idea frequently and practiced it. first with his wife Adele until her passing, and then with his new love, Sange. I appreciated the musicality of these poems, but puzzled over the meaning, brushing it off with another of Jack's theorems that poetry is meant to be felt, not understood. But one day, mysteriously, I chose to try two voices within my poem about a trip to Paris. I purposely inserted my deeper view from my other voice between the lines. How it freed my poem to let the truth of the incidents described be revealed. They say, "Ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall set you free." That is Jack Foley. His mind is free and becomes more daring with age, and so prolific. Oh, so prolific. Thank you, Jack, for your daring and your doing.
Joyce Jenkins. We can compare Walker's.
Thanks, Paul. I am honored to be here. Jack Foley, who I always imagine is tap dancing, though I don't think I've ever actually seen him tap dance, is known to us as our quintessential person of East Bay letters and community, an accomplished poet, the longtime co-host of Cover to Cover on KPFA, supporter of many literary projects such as the Penn Oakland Book Awards. We have read his book reviews and homages for Poetry Flash, where he is an appreciated contributing editor, as well as his writings for other publications. We know him for his insight and loyalty, for his support of his friends and his chosen art, poetry. Or did poetry choose him? His reviews are impeccable. Rarely is there ever a comma out of place. Many of our reviews in Poetry Flash require a certain amount of reconstruction. Fact-checking, thoughtful conclusions may be hard won. In Jack's pieces, the pearls are front and center, clear and concise, thrilling my editor's heart. He is the ultimate independent scholar who naturally researches and discovers the whys of a text just because it is the right and natural thing for him to do, as if he were finding his way out of a wilderness by feel. In his hands, the book review becomes an essay of biographical exploration, a critical or historical guide. His poetry has a similar directness and clarity. As he quotes Ezra Pound for the epigraph of The Dancer in the Dance, Poetry in the New Century, these are distinctions in clarity. It is as if he looks out at the human field of literary endeavor and hears the many voices at once, the source of the multi-voice choruses in his poems, in performance, contrapunctal, many voices, many tongues, braiding together to make one phrase of word music or to emphasize his poetic points, all at the same moment. I've seen him mesmerize his audiences. To quote Jack, one of the questions my work raises is how can you present spoken poetry, performed poetry, which is not an assertion of the ego, which remains true to an understanding of selfhood as multiple. In his foreword to The Dancer in the Dance, Al Young said, "What's in it for this man? who isn't pumping out commentary and criticism to shore up or defend an academic career. Foley does all this for love. He loves to pull back and take the grand pan infinity overview of life and art. And he loves just as much to crowd in on technical, aesthetic, or socially meaningful minutiae. As alert to music, cinema, and other dramatic forms as he is to poetry in particular and literature in general, Foley brings his thoughts and feelings for all of the arts into every essay and lecture he delivers. In an age of fractious specialization, Foley slides into place enough little pieces to come up with a big picture. Then Al went on to compare Jack to another independent poet scholar, Kenneth Rexroth. As George Oppen once said, "I have no motive for poetry other than clarity." In some ways, Jack epitomizes that statement. I was there when Jack received the Berkeley Poetry Festival Lifetime Achievement Award, and on June 5th, 2010, when the city of Berkeley declared Jack Foley Day. I believe that Jack gave his acceptance speech on the street corner at Haste and Telegraph in front of the late, great Cody's books. Adele Foley was there, and they had playful Jack Foley Day t-shirts made. What fun that was, what a shining pleasure, and that spirit carries over to this celebration today. Congratulations on this award, Jack. Of all American poets that could have been chosen, I love that you, Jack Foley, were chosen with your international, humane, and egalitarian spirit. It couldn't be more appropriate.
She's a great editor, too.
Thank you, Joyce. Dana, are you here? Dana Joya, thank you.
I think at ritual occasions, which is what we have today, and a building built for ritual occasions, it's important to say the obvious, especially in a culture which doesn't always say the obvious. I want to say three things that I think everyone in this room knows, but they're worth repeating. The first, let me introduce with a tiny anecdote. 45 years ago, I did an interview with Anthony Burgess, and we were talking, and we're talking about writers who write a lot. Burgess was one of them, and he said to me, "A prolific writer is the sign of the spirit of generosity." I think that's Jack Foley's spirit. My first observation is that, and no one will disagree with me, in this room full of people who have built Bay Area poetry, there is no one alive who has done more for California poetry than Jack Foley. Pure and simple. He's done that as a critic. He's done that as a broadcaster. He's done that as an organizer of events, and he's done that in a way as a role model. There's probably no one in this room who is not the recipient merely of Jack's generosity, but his repeated and dedicated generosity, which often takes the form of telling you that you're full of shit. But that too, it can be a community service under the right circumstances. I first met Jack 25 years ago when I was giving a reading with Robert Haas at the late great Cody's bookstore. Jack disrupted it because of a comment I made, and we got into a public argument, I guess you'd say, or public debate. Bob Haas was furious, was humiliated, but I enjoyed it. Jack and I had a wonderful public argument that I enjoyed, Jack certainly enjoyed, and the audience enjoyed. In fact, everyone enjoyed it except Bob Haas. And I went on to pursue a friendship with Jack. in that friendship, it has been consistent. Jack will respond to any decent idea you bring to him with the spirit of generosity. I've never brought him to an event or a conference that he hasn't been a disruptive presence. I mean, in a way that initially annoys you, but retrospectively always seems invaluable. Now, if we took every good deed that Jack has done for everyone in this room, if we simply looked at him as a selfish, vain man, he would still be the most important living person for California poetry on the basis of Visions and Affiliations and the other books that he has written on the subject. There is nothing like them. This leads me to my second obvious thing. The people in this room accepted, Jack remains scandalously underrecognized. If you go, even if you go down to Los Angeles, people don't recognize his name. And in Boston, in New York, in New Haven, they have no idea who he is. And that comes, I think, from something that's fundamental to his identity. First time, I think perhaps the only time my mother met Jack, she said, "What the hell does that guy do for a living?" And I explained that he didn't have a job. And she said, "It figures." She was a working class Mexican woman, and I think that one of Jack's great achievements is that he's reached 81 without ever having a real job. Who else in this room can say that? And the reason is he's had a job all the time as a poet. He is the last real bohemian standing. And that independence, that nonconformity, raised middle finger to the capitalist system has given him the perspective out of which he has done work that's irreplaceable, and also work that to the conventional literati is invisible. He doesn't publish in the places that a critic should publish, a poet should publish. He moves in disreputable circles like us. And so he is completely off their radar, while I believe he has fundamentally, and I say this as somebody who has a Harvard, Stanford education, fundamentally changed my perception of the situation of poetry in the 21st century in the United States. It is no surprise to me that this recognition came from another continent, from people who can only read Jack's work and not measure his conventional public opinion. And that leads me to my third point, which is even more obvious than the other two, is the joy that I feel, the joy that all of us feel to see him get recognized. I expected to see his picture occasionally in Poetry Flash. I put it on a cover of a book I edited about him. In fact, I wouldn't have been surprised to see it in a poster at the post office. But I never expected to see it in an honorary medallion. And so, that was reason enough to gather here today. So I want, as a poet, as a critic, but most importantly, as a reader of Jack Foley, to say congratulations to the leading man of letters from California. Thank you. Grazie, Giacomo.
You hit the spot with that one. Perfect. Now, I hope I pronounced your name correctly. Tampi Anthony Tekek. Please. Thank you.
Thank you all, and thank you, Jack Foley, great personality of Bay Area, maybe the United States. First of all, I like to thank you all for having me here. Such a great event. I never expected this, as he knows that. Sajil called me. You are the known writer, actor in Bay Area. So you are the right person to give a lifetime achievement award to Jack Foley, the great person. Congratulations again. I don't know much about Jack, but just beginning, from today, maybe next award, I can speak about him more. I can read his poems. So for me, it's a surprise. I know a lot of poets. They are all crazy, you know that. But Jack is not crazy. He's a great personality, trade of all, radio personality, and playwright and poets. I don't know what he does. He's a versatile artist. Artists are very creative. All the artists, doesn't matter who. But we don't know his real personality. You want to know, ask her wives. They all say they're crazy. Girlfriends, of course. No, girlfriends might say good things, Anyway, the artists, I like all the writers, poets. They're writing from their heart. Maybe now it's brain. New science says there's nothing in the heart. Everything is in the brain, right? So they are very creative in general. They are very creative. They have good imagination. They observe. They can create something from everything, like Richard Dawkins says. They can create something from everything. It's not nothing. We are creating from what we have here. So there are three types of people in the world. The first category, they dream only. They don't do anything. They only dream. They think they can do it. They watch TV. They make couch potatoes. Second category, they dream. They work hard. They achieve their dream. Then they stop dreaming. Oh, I have everything in my life. House, car, beautiful life. I stopped everything, return my life and go for vacation. Maybe they are the smartest guy, right? But the third category, they dream, they work hard, they achieve their dream, they keep on dreaming. They never stop dreaming. That's why we have Bill Gates and Elon Musk. Because they never stop, right? They always find new dreams. Same like artists. Doesn't matter, actor, writer, painter, they all have dreams. They never stop dreaming. They contribute to the society. They are the contributors. Even big business people, they make, anybody can stop anytime. You have enough money, you can, but you have to have dreams, many dreams. It's only one life to live. You have to have a lot of dreams. Now I have to read whatever Sajil gave me about the description about the award. I wanted to read that. They want me to read this, the brief about the description of the award. The inspiration behind this KM Anthru, he was born on April 2nd, 1937. What a coincidence. Today is the second, his birthday. So, just happened. He started his literary career at 17. He found space in many of the periodicals and magazines. He started publishing books from 2000. During his long career in literature, he published a countless number of works in various print magazines. While he was very active in literature during his old age, he suddenly became sick and bedridden. He had an unfulfilled dream of becoming an editor of magazine. Sad to add, he passed away on 19th December 2020. He was the man who loved literature, lived through it and died for it. But the magazine he started acclaimed a notable position in the world of literature. In memoriam and as a mark of respect towards him, we institute KM Anthru International Literature Prize. It is a humble beginning from literature, redefining the world to acknowledge and honor the great masters of literature and arts. The key factors which we consider during the evaluation were the years of literary activities, presence in both print and online media. Number of literary journalists, other artists, activists, and their contribution to the literature, the studies, and novel ideas of experiments. All the jury members unanimously selected Mr. Jack Foley of California as the topper in the evaluation of. He is announced as the first of 2021 KM Anthru International Literature Prize recipient. Due to travel restrictions, Sajil Andhru, the editor, could not personally attend this function. Our special thanks to Vidya Vinod, CEO Study of World Group, and 24 Channel Kerala, India for the support. And congratulations again, Jack Foley. It's my pleasure, and I'm very proud of being here. I'm honored. Thank you very much.
I think you're supposed to give me something.
Oh, yeah. I thought this is the program. Okay, this is a great event. I'm very proud of give away the most prestigious award, KM Anthru, in the name of KM Anthru. I'm inviting Jack Foley, the great poet, to the stage. See how beautiful it is. Come on here.
Yes. What I can do here.
Award to Jack Foley, California, United States, for his comprehensive contribution in literature. It's an international award for Jack Foley. Thank you very much.
Oh, my Lord. I feel like the gift scene in The Wizard of Oz, you know? And I want to say first, actually, say that my glory was I had such friends. Thank you all for what you had to say.
Thank you for the opportunity.
I'm going to bore you with some poetry.
Can you take a picture on my phone?
I'm sorry?
My phone, take a picture.
Oh.
Can you take a picture? Yeah. I can write about this, okay?
Oh, perfect. Let me get this out of the way.
Yeah. Hold this one.
All right.
I'm giving you, right?
Yeah, exactly. We can trade.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for doing this. Thank you for coming all the way. Well, from San Francisco.
From India. I'm going to put it inside.
That's an amazing thing. Thank you. I don't go anywhere. It's your turn. Yes. Yes, I'm introduce you? No, I don't think you need to introduce me. Thank you. There may be some people here I don't know. So maybe we can introduce me that way. I'm going to read a few poems. Did you get a good shot of the perfect, thank you. What does it mean to be a poet in America? What does it mean to ride the winged horse in a country where value is measured in money and acclaim, and where, as Pound said, to kalon is decreed in the marketplace? Next time, he told me, be sure you're paid for your verses. The descent happens suddenly. There you are among the dead and not the living, and words of voices that whisper. Then nothing. Skyscrapers, automobiles, sidewalks, houses, gates, churches, appeals for money, strangers. L'étranger, c'est tout. Close your eyes with holy dread. You have been where others have not, supped with the stricken, taken food from hands once full, but now transparent. Listened to lips that could no longer speak. In that world, you lingered, poet, citizen, broken by words. And this poem is titled from a famous line in the Heart Sutra, said incidentally by Lou Harrison, beautifully. Gate, gate, parasam gate, bodhisvaha. Going on beyond, always going on beyond, always becoming Buddha. Going on beyond this beyond, the always going on beyond, always becoming Buddha in the dark of our lives. This song awakens life, awakens me to longing, a longing song that rises in the heart of the morning, in the sudden flush of love for Sangha, as I see the Buddha, not as a person, but as a possibility, as the never-ending, always beginning, always going on beyond, arising in my heart, in the deep ground of being. Shadows move across my table. Old age does not mean difficulty with thought, though names may disappear. Old age is to be ravaged by memory, people alive once, no longer, yet present in the mind. From this, the notion of ghosts. People who can no longer answer, but whose words stay lodged in the web-filled, smoky attic of your busy consciousness, and at times, if they were dear, bring tears and thoughts of the strangeness of death, that something that was could cease absolutely and without recourse of any kind, no longer there. Shadows move constantly in the room, against the wall at this time of day, at this moment, this closed particularity in the vast river we call years. And I have to apologize to my Italian ancestors, because I'm going to read a poem about the Irish ancestors, and I'm not doing the Italian today, but I have on occasion. Dana, pull it down a little. Okay. Is that better? I can't tell. Is that better, honey? Okay. One of the things that struck me was a number of things about the Irish. I put them all in this poem for St. Patrick's Day. The complicated situation of being Irish American. Where do you look for tradition? In the beginning years of the 20th century, the Irish created a positive stereotype to replace the old stereotype, the one that said no Irish need apply. The effort was a great success and changed the perception of who the Irish were. Vaudeville, movies, the great cathedral, and behind it all, the green of money. Do you remember George M. Cohan, I Want to Be a Popular Millionaire? Harrigan and Hart, Montgomery and Stone first played the Tin Man and the Scarecrow in 1903. Jack Haley and Ray Bolger, both Irish, played them in 1939. My father was alive for both. George Primrose and the Essence of Old Virginia, Kitty Mills, Peggy Wood, Joseph McCarthy, and Harry Tierney, who wrote the lyrics and music to Irene, 1919, featuring a feisty Irish-American heroine. Tierney called my grandmother's pasta guinea worms. Bringing Up Father, The Life of Riley, Fibber McGee and Molly, Bing Crosby, Barry Fitzgerald, John Ford, called like me and John F. Kennedy, Jack. Lon Chaney, Raoul Walsh, Maureen O'Hara, Maureen O'Sullivan, Nancy Kelly, Patsy Kelly, Paul Kelly, born on my birthday, 1899. Mary Tyler Moore, Pat O'Brien, Edmund O'Brien, Margaret O'Brien, Irene Dunn, James Barton, Sean Connery, Gracie Allen, Gene Tierney, Fred Allen, Spencer Tracy, James Cagney, Gene Kelly, Dan Daly, Donald O'Connor, Carol O'Connor, Jackie Gleason, James Gleason, George Murphy, Helen Hayes, Grace Kelly, Debbie Reynolds, Diane Keaton, John Wayne, so many. My father saying to a gruff policeman, "Say, are you Irish?" and getting away with an illegal turn. So many. And now the rich: Huey P. Long, Eugene McCarthy, Joseph Raymond McCarthy, Senator McCarthy, Mike Pence, who spoke at St. Patrick's Cathedral, Steve Bannon with the map of Ireland on his face, Bill Clinton, all the Kennedys, Ronald Reagan, Joe Biden doing a Brody, Jack the Shot Foley, Jack Donovan Foley, inventor of a movie effects process, Father Fulton J. Sheen, Father Coughlin, the Berrigans, half like me. The Irish, says my friend Ishmael Reed, have lost their way. I am pulled in many directions. Do you want to go to the moon, Alice? I know all the sentimental songs. I defend the Irish and in the same angry breath accuse them. I eat their soda bread and their American corned beef and cabbage, but have given up their Guinness. I know what they did to James Joyce in the old country and why exile was 1/3 of his weapons. I know that Buster Keaton could make racist jokes, whereas Chaplin did not. I know why Tara was a name in Gone with the Wind, and why Eddie Murphy and Ella Fitzgerald have Irish names. I know who John L. Sullivan was and why he fought, and James Corbett, too, who put Sullivan down. I believe that William Butler Yeats is widely misunderstood by the Academy, though he was also taken for a ride by his own people. I love The Wind Among the Reeds. I love the Clancy brothers and Enya. I once made the mistake of telling my Irish landlady that I was studying English literature. She said, "Don't tell me about the English. I know what they did to our daughters." When I told Mr. Hester of the construction firm of Maguire and Hester that I was half Irish, he said in his light brogue, "With a name like John Foley, you're more than half." Another friend said, "A little bit in you is better than none at all." I do not believe in the Catholic Church or the Protestant Church or in any church. I will probably vanish when I breathe my last, though I leave behind the immensely problematical facts of my house and my always assertive body. I'm troubled. I'm dissatisfied, wrote Marianne Moore. I'm Irish. A true tale. Praise to the Jews who sold the Irish brisket. With a knife and with a fork, sure, we'd all be eating pork. So praise to the Jews who sold the Irish brisket. Praise to the Irish who weren't afraid to risk it. Can't sell you pork, we're Jews, but we hope you won't refuse. Praise to the Irish who weren't afraid to risk it. Oh, the Kellys and O'Briens, they was hungry as wild lions. They dearly needed meat. Took a bite and said, "It's great. We'll serve it up with biscuit." So praise to the Jews. Praise to the Jews. Praise to the Jews. They sold the Irish brisket. You'll see it in their basket. These are mere dreams. These stories we tell as the real runs from us up a tree or into a dark forest or the vast sea. We Irish, born into that ancient sect, but thrown upon this filthy modern tide, and by its formless spawning fury wrecked, climb to our proper dark, that we may trace the lineaments of a plummet measured face, sang Yeats of his loved, maimed people, unable to move beyond the statues they erected in the darkness of their ancient longing for the wind that traveled along the rivers among the reeds. Oh, thank you. This last one. Zangi told me to make sure I said it was my translation. It is. It's a translation. We've got more Baudelaire here. It's a translation of Baudelaire's Litanies of Satan. There's a problem here. Zangi's going to help me with this one. We can do it together. But this poem, addressed to Satan, is by the great French poet Charles Baudelaire, another April birth, by the way. He was accused by T.S. Eliot of trying to get into heaven by the back door. The poem has a refrain. Oh, Satan, prends pitié de ma longue misère. The repeated word misère is a problem for the translator. Though cognate with misery, it suggests not only wretchedness, but extreme poverty. Les misérables are the poor people of Paris. It would be possible to translate the word as poverty or wretchedness, except that in Baudelaire's litany, it clearly has overtones of its Latin root, miserere, as in the 51st Psalm. Miserere, have pity. And even the Roman Catholic liturgy, may Almighty God have mercy, miserator, upon you. Poverty and wretchedness have no such overtones. To translate the word as misery would be a mistranslation, but it would retain the overtone of miserere. To translate it as poverty would be accurate, but it would lose the overtone. You'll hear the solution Zangi and I arrive at. Will you be on my right side last? All right. Are we both audible? Okay.
I'll find out.
All right. Litanies of Satan translated by me. O thou most knowing and most beautiful of angels, God betrayed by fate, denied praise. O Satan, take pity on my long misery. O Prince of exile, wronged, who vanquished, stands up again stronger. O Satan, take pity on my long misery. You who know everything, great king of the underground, familiar healer of human agonies. O Satan, take pity on my long misery. You who even to lepers, to damned pariahs, teach through love the taste for paradise. O Satan, take pity on my long misery. You who begot hope, that charming madwoman, on your old and powerful lover death. O Satan, take pity on my long misery. You who give to the outlaw a look so high and calm and bold, it damns the people beneath the scaffold. O Satan, take pity on my long misery. You who know in what corners of envious lands the jealous God hid precious stones. O Satan, take pity on my long misery. You whose clear eye knows the deep arsenals where sleep shrouded the people of metals. O Satan, take pity on my long misery. You whose vast hand hides the precipices from the sleepwalker wandering on the edge of edifices. O Satan, take pity on my long misery. You who make supple again the old bones of the drunkard out late and trampled by horses. O Satan, take pity on my long misery. You who to console frail man who suffers, teach us to mix saltpeter and sulfur. O Satan, take pity on my long misery. You who place your mark, O subtle accomplice, on the brow of the pitiless vile Croesus. O Satan, take pity on my long misery. You who put in the eyes and heart of girls the cult of the wound and the love of rags. O Satan, take pity on my long misery. Staff of exiles, lamp of inventors, confessor of the hanged and of conspirators, O Satan, take pity on my long misery. Adoptive father of those who in his black and angry guise God the Father drove from the earthly paradise. O Satan, take pity on my long misery. Glory and praise to you, Satan, in the heights of the sky where you reigned, and in the depths of hell where vanquished you dream in silence. Allow my soul to rest near you one day, under the tree of knowledge, at the hour when on your brow, like a new temple, its branches grow. Thank you very much. Thank you, Sangeet. And again, say that my glory was I had such friends.